Episode 195, Ironman Florida with Jeff Allen. Welcome to the pursuit of the perfect race. I'm Coach Terry Wilson, and with each episode, I bring stories of athletes to you that share their experiences at races in order for you to learn how to have your perfect race. We will hear stories from athletes of all ages, abilities, and races of all distances. So regardless of where you fit in, there's something in it for you. Thanks for spending some time with me today. Now let the pursuit begin. Hey everybody, welcome back to the pursuit of the perfect race. Today I have the pleasure of talking with Jeff Allen about his recent race at Ironman Florida that took place on November 4th, 2018. The race itself moved to Haines City from Panama City Beach, and the temperature on race day was 65 and rose to 90. A few things about this race is whenever Jeff finished it was actually pouring down rain in the finish line, and he's actually being coached by my coach, Ben Drezek. Welcome to the show, Jeff. I look forward to diving into your race and spending some time with you today.
Hey, I appreciate it, Terry.
Hey, you're welcome.
Good.
So what made you want to do this race, man?
This, the first Ironman I planned, I had it in my mind. I had it in my mind a long time before, and I finished Ironman Arizona in 17 and really I knew that I was going to do another Ironman, didn't have anything planned. Certainly did not in any way plan on doing it in 2018. The reason I did it in 2018 is by March, I had started my race season, didn't have Ironman planned, and two or three buddies were doing it. We had all planned we were going to go out and try to crush Ironman Florida, go past where we did in Arizona, and really see what we could do. So I blame it on peer pressure.
Gosh.
Which is the start of any story, I think.
Yeah, you're at a bar, getting a little too drunk, and next thing you know, you're racing for a fool.
Yeah, or for triathletes, we're sitting on bike trainers going, hey, you ought to do it too, right?
Yeah. Man. So going into this race, it wasn't your first, but it was your second full. How was your training going into this one?
My training going into this one was great. I think the difference in training for the first to the second was nerves. The first one, you never know what's expected. You never know what's going on. The second, it was less nerves, less worry throughout the year going into it, and really starting the real work of the race starting in late summer, early fall, when we started really concentrating on the race itself, but really building over the first half of the year, building on fitness, building on errors from Arizona and trying to build fitness. So really my race year was building on run fitness primarily from my own part of being scared of it. And from there, starting to build race specific once we got in the fall.
Right. So going into this race, what was the most hours you trained in 1 week? I
probably trained between 13 and 16 hours a week, but really it's an hour and a half slots most of the time. Have 7 days a week where I'm doing something. Typically during the week, it's about an hour and a half each day. And during the weekends, anywhere from 3 to 5 as you get more into the race, it goes higher and higher, as you know.
Okay. So going into this race, what was your longest swim, bike, and runs?
Longest swim was 2.4. Did that at least 2 times and probably 3, once in the lake and a couple of times in the pool. Longest bike, 100, did that multiple times. Longest run, I think my longest run was 16 or 17 miles. In the way of training runs, my longest run was 50 miles.
50? That's a big difference between 16 and 17 miles and 50 miles.
Well, so let me back up a little bit. Coming out of Arizona, I had on the run, I had my back give out on me. The muscles of my back literally hunched me over like an old man and really, really gave me a lot of problems. So as I started planning for 18, what I really wanted to do is to get on the run. I had already planned before Arizona to start doing some ultra running to get better at my worst of the 3 disciplines, and already had a 50K plan and a 50 miler plan. So really it was coming out of Arizona, taking a rest and moving into some ultra running and starting into that category. So that was really coming off my rest in Arizona to start into a 50K, 50 miler. And then I did another 50K in the summer. So really it was trying to get more running under my belt and try to build up my run structure to help me out there.
Okay. So
and I backed off of it.
Okay. So were you doing a lot of strength training as well as running?
Yeah, really doing strengthening of my core, strengthening of my hamstrings, butt, lower back, and such as that, stair climbing and such as that to try to help with that. And of course, doing hill work and such as that's going to help me with that. But really, the breakdown of my run structure from what we were seeing was really in my back and that chain of muscles and trying to build those back up.
Wow.
And it works, so we're doing well.
Okay. And you're being coached by Ben. How does this work out for you, and how did you go about finding Ben, and what was this build up like using Ben's coaching?
Well, the build up of this was I was a boxer going into other things and slowly got into triathlon with a friend of mine. And once I started getting serious and found that it was a direction that I wanted to do, I did a lot of research within the Dallas-Fort Worth area to try to find a coach fit. I knew what I wanted in a coach. I knew what I wanted sort of in a team from other involvement that I'd had in other sports and such as that. And really just started trying to find a match. Took an opportunity to start working with the KMF team here in Denton after I did research and talked to friends. And once I got that research done, I then started working out with the team. And I started working out on the team in 2016, January of 2016. I started working out with the team on a normal basis, and then started getting private coaching with Ben starting in 17. That next year, as I moved myself into a better athlete, and really I took that first year to work just as a team member because it wasn't worth, in my opinion, having Ben coach me privately when I had so many things that I needed to work on and get better before he could really help me. So I really took a year working with the team, simply as a team member, come into group workouts and such as that. And then as I began looking at Arizona in 17, I started having Ben work plans and such as that with me.
Okay. So going into Florida this time, how did he help create a plan for you?
Well, the nice thing about it is he had 2 years worth of work with me, and we see each other 2 or 3 or 4 times a week with group workouts and such as that. So having a coach that you've been working for consistently every week and seeing every week, there's a good communication, whether verbally, non-verbally, just knowing each other of how you're doing each week and what you need. So after each major race that I do, I always do a race report. I try to break down what the race was like from my end, what I think went wrong, what I think I need to improve on, and such as that. And really, it's him taking what he plans as a coach and tweaking it for me and tweaking it for what I need. So for me, I knew that for this year, I needed more work on my swim structure. I knew that I needed to work on my running strength. And of course, I like biking. So that's always a whoopee when you see it on the schedule to go and do some biking. So really, it was a customization of what I needed to build my strength toward Florida. I really wanted to improve on my swim. I concentrated on that just with the normal workouts, and then with the running and working on those strengthening exercises.
Okay. So I know you weigh about 190 pounds and you're 5'10". Did you want to lose more weight going into this race, or did you want to be right at 190? How was this? And did you have a plan of balancing your day-to-day nutrition as well as what it's like to use other nutrition when you're working out? What was this like?
Yeah, the nutrition is probably my biggest piece and my biggest struggle in all of it. I've been a boxer. I know how to cut weight. I know how to do that. And when I fought as a boxer, I fought at about 178. So I want to race at about 185. I raced this last race at about 192 and felt good about it. I really felt I was on weight where I needed to be. Could I have been a few pounds lighter? Yes, but I was really happy at where I was. I probably walk around at a normal weight between 200 and 210. that becomes my normal athletic weight throughout the year. But I mainly run a low carb diet during training and then race high carbs.
Okay. So what kind of diet are you using day to day?
I'm really trying to stay as far away from carbs as I can. So it's really a fat-based diet, moderate protein, try to get my good fats in. I'll have, eggs and such as that in the morning. I'll have, simply what I can get into me, with less carbs so that I'm really trying to get most of my calories in about a 10 to 11 hour period during the day rather than all day.
Okay.
Which works great for me.
So, but whenever you're actually working out with the long bike rides and long running, what are you using for nutrition there?
I'll supplement that with my carbs, whether it be energy bars, goos, and such as that. But typically, depending on the amount of work, if it's a very high workout load, then I'm going to go to bananas. I'm going to go to bananas and such as that first. I'll go to energy bars after that. But for long bike rides and such as that, it's nuts and such as that to keep on that same idea. So on a normal basis, unless I know it's a really hard, we're gonna stick it on the wall. I'll typically stay pretty low carb, which can hurt me also.
Right. Do you feel like you run out of energy?
I don't bonk like I used to doing that. I don't have that energy and then all of a sudden feel that bonk. What I do is I do feel a slowdown and I know that I need to get something else into me. And I become a pretty good judge of that, whether I need, a high burning carb or whether I need a lower burning fruits and nuts and such as that.
Okay. So what about the workouts that you did? What about workouts that you did in training that gave you the confidence to go into this race prepared? What were those workouts like?
Well, one of the things that I think we did really well is really balancing a difference between when you're going to go slow, and when you're going to go fast. So having track workouts, having those workouts where you're stressing at the 200 and 400 and 800 yards are absolutely fantastic on the run. Having your long, slow runs as long, slow runs were really beneficial. Being able to find your paces and find really what works out for you on a daily basis. So as I went into the race, I knew how much was too fast. And I really knew where was too slow. I knew where my body was on the swim and the bike and the run to know where that was. So really the workouts throughout the year were the simulations for me to be able to go into the race running, on long bike rides when you say, when do you need the more energy to have tailwind on the bike and having that nutrition coming in with the carbs and such as that. And then having the supplemental low carbs, those as you get more toward race day were what I fueled more with. So the closer it became to race, the more I trained with those things so that as I situated my things for race day, I knew what would work for me and what became beneficial to me as I went out through the race and really having an emergency there in case of the bonk.
Okay. So going into this race in the, say, 4 or 5 months leading up to it, did you miss any training workouts?
I probably hit 95, 98% of my workouts.
Wow.
I'm a pretty compliant athlete. I had a change of jobs, and so there were a few workouts that were missed here and there just for sort of unexpected. You never would know what's going on, but for the most part, yeah, I'm pretty nice to coach's plans.
Okay. Did you get injured at all?
I wind up with, I've had nagging injuries. I've had a nagging hamstring. I've had a few IT issues. Actually, after the long 50K and 50 mile from a shoe change, gave me some IT problems. But after we found those problems, they became a whole lot easier to deal with. But in the way of long-term detrimental injuries to training, not at all. That's probably one of the best things that I'm happy about working with a coach on a regular basis is knowing me enough to back off or push when needed.
Okay.
So I'm very healthy.
So with the training with Ben, how do you and him both combat the risk of injury as volume and intensity increases?
I do a lot of notes in my training peaks. I'll send him text messages. I'll send him notes in training peaks and going, wow, I really don't feel well. Or here after Ironman Florida, me sending him notes to say, hey, I took my recovery swim. here's what felt good, here's what felt bad, here's how my body feels, here are the injuries here are the body parts that bothered me during the race and such as that. So even after this last big race, we've had communications on how we feel. I took a 20-minute recovery run today, and, I felt the hamstring a little bit. Nothing hurting. It was just talking a little bit. Well, that's the only thing that was talking. So for me to be able to tell him that's okay. And when we're seeing each other all the time, we see each other at track, we see each other on a bike, we see each other on the weekends on long runs and such as that, to be able to go, ooh, you got me, the workouts are a lot right now, then, you can see the adjustments in the training plans on a weekly basis that come that back things off a little bit or speed things up. I'm certainly willing to go full speed ahead. I'm feeling great, or, oh no, I'm not going to do strides as hard tonight because my hamstring. I'm not going to do this because of my IT. I'm going to back off for a couple of weeks on some of the hard stuff to let my ITs break out. But a lot of active recovery helps with that too.
Okay. So tell me about the days where you just mentally didn't want to train.
I think the mentally don't want to train probably come in the areas that you're struggling with the most. I know I wind up with some swim blues when you're just not seeing seconds come off, or you're seeing, the water's just thick for whatever reason. They mixed it thick or whatever that day. You just feel slow. The next workout, you're just not wanting to go. This year I used buoyancy shorts more than I ever have in my swim before. They give you a little bit more confidence. They make the bad days go a little bit better. And I knew Panama City was traditionally a wetsuit optional swim. And from my Arizona with my back bothering me, I wanted as much time getting my back into that position as possible. So really I combated a lot of those days. Damn it, it's just on the schedule. I got, if it's on the schedule, I got to do it. Where will the performance be? The performance may be really bad that day, but I did it, and I'll put it in my notes and admit to it, or go, I had a sloppy day, wasn't paying attention, or my God, I can't believe I worked out this well today. I don't know what really went on and such as that. So I think the combating of, it's on there. You got to do it. It's on there for a reason. And if I don't do it, both of us wind up having to adjust the schedule. If this was a heavy week and I've cut things back and I've made it a little bit lighter, well, it doesn't allow him to be able to make my light work lighter because he's having to compensate from the week before. So really, I go, and coach we trust. And if that's the workout the coach says, then I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. And he knows as well as I do when I'm tired and when I'm not, because we're communicating, whether it be face-to-face or via notes or via text message.
Right. So you mentioned earlier that you trained nearly 20 hours a week going into this race, right?
Yeah, probably on the heaviest weeks, yes.
Okay. And so that's pretty much a part-time job. What are you doing aside from training in your life?
I'm a professor up at the University of North Texas in the Department of Information Science. So my schedule becomes more flexible. So I can manage my time. So I can go for a mid-afternoon run, or I can go for a morning run. My weekends become pretty free and such as that. So for my flexibility of schedule, it becomes really nice. But you have the 12-hour weeks, and you have the 16-hour weeks, and then you have the really heavy weeks. So mine becomes easy. I don't have the normal difficulties that most people do of trying to get to work by 8 o'clock and back home in time to get a workout in.
Okay. So with your teaching, your training, how big of an issue is balancing life, work, and training? It doesn't seem like it's that big of an issue for you.
One of the things that I will always say is that there has to be a balance. When I work out, I don't do my phone messages, do my emails. I don't do family stuff. I work out. When I do my work, I don't do my training stuff. When I do family stuff, I don't do work or training. I try to bucket it pretty hard, and I'm trying not to do my regular work when I train, because that's my time to work on my body, not on my mind. My work works plenty on my mind. I need sometimes a break from the thinking just to do things. Wow. So I think one of the things of making this a part of your lifestyle becomes a really big piece of it. It's become a lifestyle habit, not something else to add to my schedule.
Right. So with this race, did you make any sacrifices that you regretted as far as putting training ahead of something else in your life?
I'm thinking. I think the answer is always, of course. I think triathlon's a pretty selfish sport altogether. When we start saying on the weekends I'm going to go for a 5-hour bike ride, that's a pretty selfish piece to put. My wife and I've been involved in some kind of sports or something like that throughout my adult life, so it's always been a part of I need to do this other something. But I think the sacrifices are really on the weekends when you're doing those things. Both of my boys are grown and they're in college. I don't know that I could have done this when they were in baseball and such as that. That would have simply been too much of a family sacrifice to take that much time to be able to do it. Now they have their own lives. I have my own life. My wife has her own life, and we have a good life together. So I don't think on a normal basis there were a lot of sacrifices that came out of the normal, but golly, I think we all have to sort of say that, training for an Ironman is a pretty selfish thing that we're doing, and I have to take pretty good care outside of that to spend time doing other things.
Right. So going into this race, what was your taper like?
I think, I always look forward to taper and go, oh, here comes taper, and I don't always remember how long it is. I think it was about a 10-day taper. So the Tuesday before the week of Ironman, we really finished up the workouts, but probably I would say for 2 weeks there's a good generous time to let the body recover and such as that. And I probably enjoyed taper a lot more this time than I did the first time, the first time Ironman, you always had the 70.3s and such as that are a little bit shorter, but I think I understood taper more this time than, of course, I did the first time.
Right. So going into this race, you tapered 10 days, and then during that taper, at some point, you wanted to go ahead and start traveling to Florida, obviously, from the
Sure.
Dallas area. Where did you want to stay at? And, well, even before that, let's actually just talk about the venue change. You had obviously seen the Panama City get struck by the hurricane.
Sure.
And you knew that something was going to be done by Ironman. What was your impression of all of this commotion? And I'm sure you're part of the Facebook group as well of everybody talking and complaining and worrying. What was all this like for you?
Well, I think it was around October 11th or so that Hurricane Michael came through Panama City Beach, and we were all watching it. And we all know hurricanes. We live in Texas and such as that. But it came across a lot worse than I think anybody expected. I know all of us as racers were sort of going, what the hell is going to happen? Is this going to happen? Is this not going to happen? Such as that. Once the hurricane came over, then everybody went, this isn't going to happen. It was 30 days out with a hurricane coming across the race venue, and we started getting hotels, from, the social media going, hotels destroyed, roofs off of this one, emergency people coming in, all the states coming in to work on this. And then I think it's the social group as a whole going, how the hell do we race in a town that's been devastated by a hurricane and go and do all of this and bring all that is, the Ironman racing into a city like that. So I think all of that was going through people's minds, but really it's, God, I spent all of this amount of time from, March, if you will, or, all fall or all summer and fall. We spent training and we're at the end of the year and, are we going to get to race? Or Lord only knows we're going to have to train through the winter to be ready for another Ironman in the spring. So I think all of those things went through our heads as we went through it. For me, it was, will we get the opportunity to race Arizona? Arizona wasn't the one I wanted to go to, but I knew Arizona and that would certainly work out. That was, sort of first guesses, or would they move people to Texas, or would they give it? What would be the choices that may or may not be, or would it just simply be canceled and that's it because it's the end of the season? So all of those things were building up probably until about 10 days before the race, when Ironman made the decision to move it to Haines City. What it meant for travel and such as that, we really moved out another 5 hours of travel, 5 or 6 hours of travel time to get there, which meant a few different travel plans, which meant getting hotels and such as that arranged and all of that. So really the arrangements between those of us who were going came together pretty quickly. We got changed over, started looking at, what are the bike and swim and the run courses going to look like versus Panama City. All of us, I think everybody sort of does that is Florida's flat. No big deal. It moved from Panama City flat to Central Florida flat. Who really cares? We probably won't get to swim in the ocean. We have to swim in a lake. Well, I'll leave it at that. There's plenty to talk about there.
Yeah. So did you lose any money with the previous hotel in Panama City?
No, we didn't.
You didn't? Do you know of anybody that did?
We got a complete refund on that.
Wow. Do you know of anybody that did lose money on that?
I've heard that people lost money. And, of course, there were people who lost money on this change. And there are people who lost dramatic amounts of money from hotels or bed and breakfast or private residences that they had rented, or people that were flying into one city and didn't get full airline tickets to go to another city or had transportation come in, or people coming from overseas. There's a big difference between flying into Panama City and flying into Orlando or Tampa and trying to get those things done. So I know that we got pretty lucky in our travel. There are a lot of other people that I know had lots of different problems. So yeah, there were people who lost a lot, and some people who simply couldn't afford to make the changeover from Panama City to Haines City.
Right. So now then, just to kind of go into this race, what hotel did y'all stay at?
We stayed, I want to say Belmore,
Okay.
but I'll be wrong there. It was only about a mile and a half from the race venue.
That's not bad.
A little bitty short 10-minute trip over there. We stayed in a townhouse there on property. The run of the course actually came into the back end of the property, so we were that close.
Nice. So whenever you actually saw the elevation gain for this course, what did you think initially?
I don't know that we had any great fears. We're here in North Texas training and such as that. And I think all of us went, it can't be any worse than here. So that meant really on our training, our bikes and our runs and I guess our swims, now that it was in a lake, really mirrored what was there. So it really became, a normal race for us, and I'll say for me, it became a normal race. It was as if we were going to race in North Texas. I didn't see any elevation gains that went, oh no, I of course heard rumors, there's a really big hill or whatever, but when you started really looking at the elevations, there weren't those things. What it did do, I think, for all of us looking at it is you really had to change your thinking of the race strategy for the bike, or you had to change your race strategy on the run and such as that. So I think leading up to the race or leading up to getting there, I think all of those things go through your mind of, what's going to happen. We have this historic data on one race, and now we're going to another. I think for me and probably for many other people, it went from, I think I can do this, this, and this on this course to, I have no idea what I can do on this new course, because there's no data there, and we're a lot of times driven with data, and we simply didn't have it anymore. All of the pressure of getting certain times and such as that go out the window because it's only going to be run one time. So you're not worried about the last year or the year after. There's some freedom in just simply getting and running a race that's never been run before or will never be run again. Knock on wood for everybody else. So there's some freedom in that. But I think there's always a trepidation as you move into a race on what's it going to be, what's it going to look like, and oh no, am I trained for it?
Right. So whenever you actually got down to Haines City and you got checked into your townhouse and then you go down to the expo to check in, what was the check-in process, and was Ironman Village as big as you have seen in the past? What was this like?
I personally, I thought they, and I'll do the caveat of, they then had a month to move the operations of Ironman from Panama City to a traditional, they have everything put together to move it to a new city, towns, permits, people, volunteers, and such as that. So whatever I say is really with the caveat of, for what they had, registration was fantastic. We walked into registration a couple of hours after it opened. We walked up to the entry and walked through the process. There were no lines. There were no people. There were plenty of volunteers, plenty of support, exactly what you would expect in Arizona or other place on the registration process. It was easy. Parking was easy in going into race registration, though we had already heard horror stories of trying to park down there for race day. We really had an easy time finding things. The registration process worked well and such as that. In the way of the Ironman tent and the merch booth and such as that, it was as big as any other. Though I will say Ironman Waco, the 2 weeks before, was fantastic. They had a normal size Ironman merchandising tent. This one did too. You probably had a few less vendors than I would expect at an Ironman event or what I would expect at Florida. But I think it's to be expected with the changes that were made. I think for the amount of time that they had, it was set up very, very well.
Wow. So after you get done checking in and all of that fun stuff, what are you trying to do from a nutrition standpoint that Friday and Saturday?
Well, for Friday and Saturday, I'm mainly trying to hydrate. I want to get used to the temperature. When we walked in there for the registration and such, the sun was shining and it was hot. It was hot, humid, standard sweat in the Florida heat. Once the wind started blowing a little bit, cooler breeze. But we knew when we walked into it that this could get. So really starting the hydration, need to carry an Nalgene bottle full of nutrition was part of my from then on. So I was walking around with either base hydro and an Nalgene bottle, sipping on that anytime I was out and about. At the townhouse, I was sipping on it. Really, some of the times I think it's just to get my bladder used to being full of water all the time. But making sure that everything was there, making sure electrolytes were up and such as that. So really for Friday, that was my main thing. Not really paying attention to much of anything else. I'm still on a fairly low carb at that point, just because that's me. That's the way I like doing things. On Friday, and then Saturday started building up some of the carbs and not worrying about that. Building into Saturday again, sort of getting your body into race mode for that. So really, the Friday and Saturday is just getting your body, final stretches, final warm ups, final short run, bike checks, and such as that. But again, we were all veterans of going through Ironman, so I don't. Pretty systematic process that everybody was going through, putting their bags together and such as that. So rest as much as you could. I don't think any of us rested as much as we always want to, but really rest, getting nutrition and getting set up for the next day.
Okay. So after you get all that fun stuff done, how was bike check-in?
Bike check-in was great. They had a 2-level bike area. They put them all in in as small of a portion as you could. One of the things that I think that, I would personally applaud them on is the fairness of racers coming into bike transition and out of bike transition. As 4 of it, I have to think about this. With 4 of us racing, we were sort of in 4 different parts of the bike check-in part. So when you racked your bikes, if you will, we were in 4 areas of it, and none of us went, "Ooh, I have the advantage on the bike or the bike in and out." It was a long transition area where you're going to have to come in on bikes. We walked. That was going to be a long transition to go from bike to run and such as that. So the transition areas were very, very long. But for what bike was, it was very well done. All of your special needs bags went on tennis courts, well laid out. So they're on a tennis court piece. So it was easy to get to and easy for volunteers to get to bags. So I think from that standpoint, everything was set up very well.
Nice. So as you actually wreck your bike and leave that transition area, how are you feeling mentally and emotionally about this event?
I was really pretty calm about the whole thing. I don't think I really got nerves until race morning. You have, and again, this may come back to all of the venues changing. The weather was going to be what it was going to be. The course was going to be what it was going to be. The transition area was going to be what it was going to be. There really wasn't anything that you could worry about. By the time you're at that point, your special needs bags are done, except for, a couple of things that you're going to bring down in the morning. The biggest worries were, where are we going to eat next?
So where did y'all go and eat?
We had pancakes, took pancakes home, and everybody had pancakes and all of their leftovers for that. So really we ate dinner there on property, and then we had extra food from our breakfast brunch that we both had that night and the next morning as we got into the race.
Nice. So what time are you aiming to go to bed the night before the race?
I'm a pretty good sleeper before the night of the race. I think I was up at about 3:15. I'll rise earlier than some just to get my morning started. But I think I was in bed by 9:30 to get up at 3:30 and probably asleep by about 9:35. Woke up about every hour just to go, oh, it's an hour later, go back to sleep. Oh, an hour later, go back to sleep. We also had daylight savings time coming in, which gave everybody an extra hour. So there was an hour there that you go, oh, it's still that same hour. Well, it was actually an hour before, but your clocks and watches have switched automatically for you and such as that. So nobody was worried about waking up late. You're really only worried about waking up early. So the night's a pretty normal night's sleep, just, up and back asleep. So again, I sleep pretty good the night before.
So you went to bed at 9:30, woke up at 3:30 and got 7 hours of sleep.
Yeah. Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Sure,
So as you're wanting to get up and all that fun stuff the morning of, what are you actually doing as far as your plan for the day? I know you and Ben probably talked about a way to strategically attack this course, right?
Yeah. I actually walked into the second one much more than the first one, not really wanting to give a plan. I mean, as an athlete, just going, I've done it one time. Do I need to share it? Do we really need to talk about it? We've been talking around the race for the last few months. Do you as an athlete really need to give coach a plan? Really, I think I was more hesitant to do it the second time, more so than the first time, because I almost felt like I should know what I'm doing. I should already have my plan. I don't need, to go, hey, coach, am I sure that this is what I'm supposed to do? But I did. And I did that the night before, sent him the plan of my race. I had a pretty aggressive race plan to set it up for the run. Just me personally. I wanted to have a good swim. I knew that I wanted to be around 120 on my swim. I knew that I wanted to moderate my bike. I knew, and I love, and we all do, to just hammer the bike, kill the bike, come in with a great bike split and get on the run. I really wanted to moderate my bike. Again, from Arizona, my failure in Arizona for me personally was on the run. So I really wanted to set up my whole day for the run. My original plan, and the one that I gave to coach, was I wanted to run the run. And that's really run the run excluding the aid stations, and to walk the aid stations so that you're running every mile, and then every aid station you're taking your break and such as that. And I thought it was a pretty good solid plan, and gave it to Ben just in our discussions before going to bed, and he went, no, this is wrong. This won't work for you. You can do it, but here's what's going to happen. And this is where he changed, and again, I was hesitant to give it to him, at the end, because we'd already run the bike course and run course, gave it to the end, and he went, no, he said, treat it like an ultra. This is a hilly run course. I had already been running, I'd run 3 ultras during the year, and he said, if you're going to have to walk the third lap, walk the first lap. And so, I reflected on it. We had a sort of a discussion of what all of that meant to both of us, and I went out the next day and treated it truly as an ultra run, and it was the best thing that I could have possibly done on that particular course, on that particular day, with those particular weather conditions. So
the strategy went from walking the last lap to walking the first lap a lot more, and then negative splitting it. Yeah,
because I really wanted to sort of run it as long as I could, feeling that I had the fitness to be able to run the whole thing. But this is a hilly, it's a hilly run course. The best of runners, and I'm nowhere near even to consider myself in a good runner, much less one of the really good runners. There was no way, as I look at it today, that I could have run that run course the way that I wanted to. I would have failed at mile 2 or 5 and not been on the run on a walk the hills and run the flats and downhills. I'd have never done that more than 5 or 6 miles.
Wow.
It was that much of a difference between the strategy that we actually did and the strategy that I thought I should be doing.
Right.
And it was really me going, okay, ego aside, I need to tell Ben what I plan to do so he can say, dumbass, quit doing what you said you weren't going to do. So I needed that accountability for me. So when he was on the course and he was saying things to me, we had a basis to communicate from.
Right. So whenever you actually woke up on race morning, did you look at the weather at all? Were you always looking at the weather? How did this change for you?
I looked at the weather just really out of interest because there's nothing else to do, leading into race week. We had sort of seen the weather go all over the place, and we knew that we were going to get some rain that day. The temperature from 3 or 4 days before the race to the race day, the temperature went up 5 degrees, 7 degrees, and such as that. So we knew it was going to be a hotter day. We had expectations that we would come in and have more rain throughout the day, and we had less. We had pretty good weather overall until it got hot. We had pretty good weather overall until it just started downpouring. So the weather really going into race morning couldn't have been any better on the beach. It was cloudy, overcast, and absolutely zero wind.
Wow. So
it didn't stay that way.
Right. We'll get to that now. With this actual race, what were you putting in all of your bags to include your special needs bags?
I had all of my bags packed way before I went. I shouldn't say way before. Before I went to Florida, I had every bag packed. I had everything laid out. I had everything in Ziploc bags so that within my bike special needs bag, or within my bike bag, I had a Ziploc bag that basically said, eat me in transition. I had a Ziploc bag. Simple. I had a bag that said, put on bike. I had a bag that said, wear these. And it's really not saying, bike kit. It's wear these, because I know that during those times I become stupid and I need to be able to talk to myself simply. So eat me is meaningful to me when I'm sitting there trying to figure out everything else. I had sunglasses that I wanted cleaned on the run, and I had clean before using, so I would give them to somebody to clean. So there were things like that as I packed. So I probably packed everything that I needed, sort of from a calorie, not quite a calories per hour. I packed pretty heavy amount of food this time to try to get better nutrition in than I did the year before.
Okay. So being that you have everything in Ziploc bags, you're not too worried about if it gets wet or any of that fun stuff.
No, I had everything completely dry packed before we started. Okay. So yes, even if our bags were filled with water, I should have at least had an opportunity to stay dry. Okay. And I used 2-gallon bags, 1-gallon bags, and snack size bags.
So as you're actually going to transition, what are you doing in transition the morning of the race before you actually head down to the swim start?
Oh, actually, the morning of the race, I went down, we had plenty of time. We wanted plenty of time to get into transition, to do all of our things, get onto the beach and simply relax. Do all of your business, all of those things that we need to do in the mornings anyways. Drink, hydrate, get the rest of our food and simply relax. But I actually went to my bike to put everything together, put my bottles on. I had bought cheap throwaway bottles for the bike for the first half, so they could be thrown away, and pick up my good podium bottles on the back end of the race. Put all those bottles on, filled up my torpedo, double-checked my bike, checked my bike computer, and my bike computer wasn't there. I went, oh no, my bike computer is missing, which is a moment of panic because your bike computer, my Garmin was not something I wanted to lose. But in all honesty, I went, there's nothing I can do about it. I can't tell somebody my bike computer is gone. There's no way for somebody to find it. If it was, I'll deal with this afterwards. So I sort of let, that was one of the oh shit moments of the morning where you go, there goes, well, you have your wristwatch computer, but I always like to see my bike computer with all my numbers on it. So I really went away from it, went, que sera, that's the way it goes, keep on going, and got everything set up and went to the beach and really left that problem at the bike. I did find out as I went off of the swim into the bike that actually my bike computer was in my bike shoe. so that I would remember to put it on the bike as I got there. So it was me forgetting where I put it. Excuse me. But the first thing that I thought is, oh no, what happened to my bike computer? Because, you really can't think about those things when it was. Luckily, it wasn't something that stayed with me to lead into another bother in the race. It was just one of those we'll deal with it afterwards. We're racing and keep on going. So I was wrong. It was there. Nobody had taken it, stolen it, misplaced it, besides me putting it in a place where I certainly wouldn't forget it before I got on the bike.
Wow. So it kind of seems like doing these events and doing these long course events, it's really more about teaching yourself lessons of being grateful for different things along the way.
I think so. And I think for me, it's also a part of my circle of influence. I can only control so much. If I can't control something, there's no reason for me to worry about it. If I can control it, then damn it, do something about it. If I can't do anything about it, I can't control it. So don't worry about it. So for me, it's really me having to manage what I can do and what I can't do. And so much of this for me is to get it done before the race, before I even traveled, so that when I got to the race and when I was on site in Florida, I have to worry about those things anymore. But yeah, in some cases it's, hey, at least there's no wind. Hey, at least it's not storming on us. Hey, at least it's not 95. Hey, at least it's not. I think there's a lot of that going on.
And it seems like you set yourself up for a really stress-free weekend and stress-free time before the race as well.
I tried the best that I could.
So what are some tips that you would give newcomers to the sport to eliminate as much stress as they can before the race?
Only worry about those things that you can truly control. We worry way too much about the weather. I only want to know about the weather, so I need to know whether I want to put a rain jacket in. But my rain jacket is typically a garbage bag, so I can throw it away or I don't have to worry about it. A garbage bag will keep me warm before the swim. A garbage bag will keep me fairly dry, but I'm waterproof. So I'm really not worried about the rain. I'm worried about the cold that comes with the rain. So I can't control the temperature or I can't control the rain. I'm not worried about the rain. I'm waterproof. I am worried about the temperature with the rain. I was much worried about the sprinkles that came down and made it all of a sudden humid outside, or more humid, than I was about the heavy deluge of rain that came later in the day.
Right.
So I think the biggest tip is worry about those things that you can truly worry about and do something about it. If you can't do anything about it, that's the race fighting back. That's the venue fighting back. I mean, that's why we do these things. It's not on an indoor pool and it's not on an indoor track and it's not on an indoor velodrome. We're racing outside. We're racing against conditions and clouds and sun and everything else. So I think those are sort of part of the journey and sort of part of the really cool stories that we get to tell afterwards.
Okay. So really only worry about the things that you can control. Everything else, just let it go.
Yeah. And on the race side, I can't worry about my training. That's already done. So I'm not worried about my fitness. I'm worried about the food that I take in and, the preparation that I do for that day and sort of the attitude I take into the race.
Yeah. So you get down to the swim start. What is the swim start atmosphere like? I know Ben's there. Some other teammates are there.
Sure.
What's going on in your mind, and how does this atmosphere feel?
The temperature was probably low 60s at the time, so a nice, comfortable temperature to be able to sit out without the wetsuit or with the wetsuit, sort of however you preferred. We had a nice grassy area. The beach was sugar sand, so nice deep sugar sand that nobody really wanted to lay down in. So setting and finding this as a group of place to lay down and relax or sit up and put on our tri-slide and start putting on our wetsuits and such as that. It a little respite before the day started. Let everybody sort of get in their own heads. Not a lot of talking, of course. You have a little bit of murmuring and some hoorahs going on around the group, sort of depending on however people get ready. And at this point, it's just sort of going down through the checklist of what you want to do on your swim, what you want to do on the bike, what you want to do on the run. But really, for the way that I had my race planned, it was really thinking about what I want to do on the swim and bring the wetsuit and myself for that swim, and really not worried about the rest of the day because those are going to come. I have plenty of time to worry about.
Right. So the cannon goes off for everybody. Is this a rolling start, a mass start? What is this like for you, and what is your strategy like for the swim?
I actually started off a little bit slower than I probably should have. At Arizona, I was a 120 swimmer. I thought my swim fitness was a lot better than it was in Arizona. My technique absolutely was better than what I had in Arizona, but a much tougher course. They called it an M.DOT course. It looked like alligator jaws. You could easily make it an alligator course or a pair of pants. A pair of pants is probably crotch is probably the best way to describe this swim course. You had 6 turns in each of 2 laps. The nice thing for those of us who get bored about things is you had buoys often, and you could see even the furthest buoy out from the swim start. It was a rolling swim start. We went in 4 rows with, I think, is a 5-second gap between each 4 people that went in, which meant that there was a little bit of time before you got started. I put myself at the back of the 115s, I think, to get myself sort of slotted the way that I wanted to, and began the swim. It's a small lake. Lake Eva is a small lake. Waiting, probably for the first 20 yards in the water. You could lay down on your belly and touch the bottom for a little while longer and get into the silt and the mud and the vegetation and such as that. Finally get over a little bit of hump and get a little bit of clear water. But it was a fairly easy swim start. Get started into it and go buoy to buoy to buoy, 400 to 500 yards apart, and go on down. Make a left-hand turn, go across the top of the bottom of the pants leg, and come back up through the crotch of the pants as you make a couple of other turns. They had 2 pontoon-type buoys with string in between them for timing mat, which is great because it gave everybody sort of quarter times on the swim. So if your participants were watching on the shore, they could get quarter times on you. Came out of the swim. We got that halfway. Again, silty parts. There were some parts in the swim that were pretty rough and tumble. Once you got into the 2 pontoons to go through the timing mats, that was pretty narrow. I've said several times I feel really badly for those who are not good swimmers or not experienced swimmers who aren't rugged swimmers, if you will, because again, people in a small lake on a 2-loop course making a lot of turns. So I'm sure there are some people pretty beat up in that. As I've read different race reports and such as that, there were some people that were knocked in the face and, everything else. For those of you who could swim, a lot of times you were simply stopping and maneuvering around people that were trying to find their way on the course and such as that. But again, that's the race course. It is what it is.
Right. Now, with this course, where did you want to keep the buoys? Did you always want to keep them on your right?
You kept them on the left until they were on your right. So if you started at the waistband of jeans and went down the right-hand leg, you kept them on your left. You then go across the bottom of the jeans, you keep them on your left. You then come up toward the crotch, you keep them on your left. Once you go through the pylons, you keep them on either side of you. Once you go past the crotch and start down the left leg, you keep them on your right. And then they come back on your left and stay on your left. So mainly, it was a left-hand pylon.
Okay.
However, just like any other course, you're really working on those last pylons. So you're working on each corner. So you had a little bit of leeway on both sides of the pylon, but mainly it was a left-sided pylon grid.
Okay, because I know in the future that could throw people for a loop as well. Now, I remember interviewing people from the Haines City 70.3 this year and how they actually said that there was a big hole at the very end of the swim whenever they were getting ready to get out of the swim. Was this there for this race?
Yes. So what really that is in description is it would be as if there's a sandbar in front of a beach. So as you came up within let's say 30 yards of the beach, there was dirt underneath you, silty, muddy dirt, but dirt nonetheless. I wanted to take a gel as I started the second loop, so I stood up because that would give me, a few yards to be able to drink the gel. Well, that hump only lasted for about 4 steps, so it gave me enough time to pull it out of my wetsuit, get it up to my mouth and start to do it, and it starts getting deeper, which gives you that, I made a tactical error. I used I used one hand to put the gel back in, so my right hand used the gel to put back in, and my left one's trying to get my goggles down enough, because I've already taken my goggles off, of course, to get back down to the water to swim another 20 yards to the beach. Well, I got the left eye on all the way and the right eye on most of the way, and just swam.
Oh, man.
Stood back up because of that little drop off, stood back up, beach, and then went on about your merry way. So, yes, there was. It's not really a hole. It really goes across that whole area because you find it when you come in and when you come out. It's not as prevalent when you come in as it is when you come out. Okay. But coming, there's no way that you could wade across it.
Right. So as you wrap up the swim, you're in T1 for right at 16 minutes, just under that. How does T1 go for you? Do you have a plan of how you want to execute T1? Are you fully changing to get comfortable on the bike, or are you not? What is the T1 for you?
Yeah, so my race plan before, during, and after talking with Coach about my plans was that I wanted to take my time in transition, not to waste my time, but to take my time. And I really wanted to make it 3 different races. I wanted to see what I could do on the swim, I wanted to see what I could do on the bike, and I wanted to see what I could do on the run. So my transition times for me didn't matter. There were, I believe we measured it at, or somebody measured it, 0.43 of a mile of transition walking or running, however you wanted to do it. So for me, it was a power walk through transition. You're really weaving around. You start off with 2 or 3 heads of showers, go around through the tennis courts, get your stuff, go around the far side of the building to go into a gym to get changed, come back up the building on the far side to get back through the original time to go around your bike. So you had a long time. You really had to have a strategy of what you were going to do. I stayed barefooted the whole time for myself. I did a complete change in T1. I wanted to be comfortable on the bike. I really wanted more pockets is what I wanted on the bike so that I could put extra nutrition. I think I took 8 gels with me, with a mixture of sports, science and sports and goos in my bento box. And then I had probably 800 calories worth of bars and everything else in my bike jersey, so that I had plenty of calories for each loop of that. I actually took a torpedo and 3 bottles. If I, and I do it each time, I would probably take a torpedo and 2 bottles and leave an empty slot. I carried too much weight on it. But I also knew that it was going to be hot. That was just the guess. So I didn't want to stop at aid stations. I didn't want to stop at aid stations. So I wanted to be able to be self-sufficient throughout both loops. So I took enough nutrition to be able to do that. So I know that goes on T1, but it matters because I changed to a kit because I needed the pockets to be able to carry things to be self-sufficient. I'm glad that I did. It took me, let's say 5 extra minutes to fully re-kit. But I think for my particular race, the way that I wanted to race it, it was the right decision on the day to do that.
Wow. As you're actually heading out of T1 for the bike ride, how's your mindset and what strategy are you using for the bike ride? Do you have a power meter? Are you wanting to hit a certain heart rate, power, cadence? What is this like for you?
On a weekly basis, when I run wattage and train, I don't have wattage on my race bike. So I'm really looking for me, I'm looking at an average miles per hour. I know what I can hold on a bike. I know how I can ride on a bike. For this one, my bike fitness is as good as it has ever been. I'm a good cyclist. I ride pretty good and can ride at the front of the group. I knew what I was capable of biking. I knew what I would have loved to have ridden what I was capable of. I knew from pre-driving the bike course on Friday that it would be a fun course. It wasn't one that you could plan a long ways out. It was a half mile to 3 miles at a time that you could sort of plan your bike ride, but it was a rider's course that you could kill as a cyclist. However, there was a payment at the end of it.
A payment?
A payment, and you would walk off wobbly-legged and not have anything for the run, which would have been fun, but it wouldn't have been to my race strategy. So my strategy for the bike was to run it fairly hard, but I wanted a controlled pace. I wanted to control it and I wanted to control to set me up for the run. I didn't want to walk off the bike tired and trying to recover the first 3 or 4 or 5 miles on the run. I wanted to be able to go into the run refreshed, knowing that I came off of a 112-mile bike ride, but not cramped up, not dehydrated, not undernourished. I wanted to be able to have that rolling buffet and to be able to be well hydrated and in good shape to start on the run. So I did that. I average was probably half a mile to a mile less than what I would have liked for it to have been, but it was exactly what I should have. I went out hard first half, the first loop that I should have, and I backed myself off of it to be more controlled of my bike ride. And it was simply because excited to be on the bike. It's your specialization. And I had to have self-talk as I got on the bike to go, dummy, slow down. This isn't the race plan. This isn't what you're supposed to do. So again, going back to why share with the coach, then he can be looking at the splits. As I'm coming off the bike, he knows that I'm running what I wanted to and what he wanted me to as I get on the run. And really it's so that I have accountability for what I did right and wrong at the end of it. But I got into my plan and really rode the 112 miles without a lot of difficulties. It was a hot bike course. I took at every aid station. I took the first water bottle, put it over me, took the Gatorade as a second bottle and squirted that into me, took a banana as a third thing because I prefer bananas over the gels from the person who was there. Got a Gatorade if they had it next, and then if they had a bottle of water and or both, I would put the water on me and the Gatorade in me and kept going through the aid station. So all the aid stations were rolling aid stations, but taking in hydration a little bit and taking in water to cool me off, simply for comfort, not really for anything else, and keep on rolling. I had my goos that I would take coming up into the aid stations, knowing that I was going to take on more into liquid nutrition, and I would have water following the goo. And in between aid stations, I think we're about 15 miles apart, I took in a sports and science gel to make sure that I had that again, train low and race high on the carbs.
Right. Now, you're aiming for about 350 calories an hour here. Is that what you hit? And what was your plan to make sure you got in exactly 350 calories every hour? Did you want to eat in certain intervals? What was this like?
No, I have a timer set at about every 30, 35, I think it's at 30 on this race, to make sure I was taking everything in. I don't like taking in nutrition. I don't like eating on the bike. I just don't like doing it. I forget. So I needed that often reminder. I'm not a very good sipper on the nutrition. So I had Tailwind and base hydro in all of my bottles. I run Tailwind non-flavored. So the base hydro gave me the taste in there and gave me some extra nutrition without costing me syrup. So I was taking that in continually through the torpedo, and I would refill my torpedo off my bottles. And then every time that I had a chance, I would then take in a gel to supplement whatever I was getting out of the bottle. So I took in my calories well this time, and I took them throughout. So I had nutrition in the whole time that I was doing. I didn't take any regular water in during the whole time.
Okay. So if we take a comparison look objectively at Arizona's nutrition plan that you did and this particular race and compare the nutrition plan individually, which one was better?
Oh, this one by far. Arizona was a disaster from nutrition. I didn't take in enough liquids. It was a hot, windy course. I didn't take in enough nutrition. I didn't take in enough water. I didn't take in enough hydration or nutrition in any way. I was at a deficit when I got on the run and paid for it. Would have things held out better the last year if I did those things? I think so. This was a much better nutrition plan for me.
Okay. So what about cadence? Are you using cadence at all?
No, I really did not. I don't when I race. On a normal basis, I run about 85 to 93 on a normal basis on my cadence. In this one, I wanted to work the downhills and go up the hills. So I was really working my downhills the most because I'm a bigger guy, so I get a little bit more off the downhills. And I didn't want to be breathing out of control going uphill. So I wasn't working the uphills. I wasn't grinding those. I was moving up at them at a pace, but I really used the course to its greatest advantage for me as I went through it. So really it was a strategic ride for me as we went through it. So I wasn't overworking things as we went.
Right. So how was the quality of the road here in Haines City?
Fantastic. Couldn't ask for anything better.
Really? The whole way?
The whole way until the last probably 5 miles coming into town. And we would consider some of those, even where it was lower quality, are better than some of the chip seal we have around here.
Wow.
So I'd say great roads anytime. Ride them again anytime.
Wow. So the aid stations here on the course.
Yep.
How fully manned were they? Did you have any aid stations that you didn't have enough time to get rid of anything, or you had to stop? What was this?
I thought the aid stations were plenty long, which gave me time. Like I say, I got a water on me, Gatorade in me, banana in me, Gatorade typically again in me, and a water on me in the aid stations. So there was plenty of time to go through the aid stations, still rolling, and get everything done, and get rid of your trash and such as that. That was one of the reasons for taking the goos and such before I got to the aid stations, because I could toss my trash and everything else there, and I didn't have to keep it all on the bike.
Wow.
So they were very well manned for the amount of time that they had to get volunteers. It was spectacular.
Okay. So what about flats and wrecks? Did you see any flats, wrecks, or mechanicals?
There were flats, there were wrecks, there were mechanicals. I didn't see a whole lot of them from sort of where I was on the course. I know as it went later in the day, when people are tired, when people are dehydrated and such as that, there seemed to be a whole lot more wrecks and a whole lot more mechanicals and a whole lot of other things. There were quite a few flats, and you see them commonly on Ironman courses. I don't think any more than usual. So that was pretty common. I know there was a really bad accident.
Really?
On the course. I would say people should go out rather than me saying, here's what happened, go out. But it was a traffic control issue. A biker ran into the side of a car that was on the course. So there were a couple of those issues that could have been better managed, but that's what it is. But for mechanicals, there were some of them, there were flats and everything else, but I don't think it's typical of what a normal course is.
Okay. So as far as the bike goes, is there anything you'd tell someone to be aware of that hasn't done this distance before? Because I know this race isn't going to happen again next year, but this course and this distance will happen again next year. What would you tell them to be aware of about this distance?
80. Mile 80. It's a killer.
80.
Everybody will go hard and they will find that 80-mile bike wall and they go, well, I'll go hard until 80 and then I'll struggle through it. Well, that's okay in 100, but once you do 80 and you have 20 plus another 12, you're talking a few hours there of struggling through that distance. And that's really when you start cramping up and such as that. So I think that bike fitness of getting to that 80 and beyond on your mileage is a really big figure to really look at and go, I need to go beyond that and see where my muscles are starting to cramp up when I start getting knots. How do I get out of those? Because all of those are going to start appearing once that 70, 80, 90 gets there. Everybody looks at that 100 as a really big number. I've got to 100. I only have 12 miles to go. Well, 12 miles is still 40 minutes. Well, that's still a long amount of bike riding to do. So I think from a distance point of view, having that hydration on point, having your electrolytes on point, or a big thing. I had base salt. I had a scoop of base salt in each of my water bottles. So I made sure that I was taking my salt as I went. And then I had a base salt tube that I used along the way too. So on those hot days, those become even more important. And I really recognized that doing Hotter Than Hell back in August when I was cramping up and knew that I needed more. And it was simply a planning thing.
Okay. So for miles 80, 90, and 100, how are you holding up mentally here?
Oh, it was for me, it was a great race. For that particular course at about mile 80, you got a big long downhill, and I sort of knew where I was on the course. I knew what my coming in time was. A much harder bike course than whatever it was. So my goal at that point was to come in under 6 hours. I knew what I could come in under if I pushed it, but I knew what I had to come in under and still be under control. And I came in a couple of minutes under what I wanted to. I wanted to come in under 6 hours in a controlled manner, and I did. 5:59. Yeah, just barely. And it was simply, I knew that I might miss it, but the might miss it versus getting it meant a lot more work. And I didn't want to do to sacrifice my run. I was willing to be close for that. So really it was a controlled ride the whole time. So for me, it was pretty easy. Like I say, I could have run it a lot harder for, 10-minute difference, but it would have sacrificed a lot of things for me.
Right. So you get to T2, you hand off your bike, and then you go to the change in. Are you changing again fully? Are you wanting to get comfortable in the run? What's your mindset for the run in T2?
So for Arizona, I kept one kit. So I kept the same kit on the whole time. This one, I wanted a full change each time. So I put on a pair of run shorts, the run shorts that I always wear, stripped off all things tri, put on an ink and burn, nice flat seamed, shirt, put on my comfortable shoes. I bought a new pair of shoes about a month before the race so that I could get them, worn in a little bit before the race started. So they had plenty of tread, plenty of foam in them. Had to borrow a hat because I had forgotten my hat in Texas and took off on the run. The one thing that I did take time in, I say I took time. One of my notes was clean your sunglasses because the one comfort that I wanted was a pair of clean sunglasses. So I grabbed one of the volunteers and said, please clean my sunglasses. What other help do you need? None, just as long as they're clean. So my clean sunglasses, which I didn't use very much for that particular day, were a big important part to me, and to be comfortable and to completely change into a run kit was part of my plan. So again, I sacrificed a couple of minutes doing a full change. Again, I took my Ziploc bag that said eat me, and I ate me as I went out into transition, and I sort of followed my own directions in my Ziploc bag as I went through. So it became a pretty simple process.
Nice. So as you're heading out on T2 here for the run course, you're taking it super easy on the first loop here before you actually head out. Did you know that it had a chance of raining on you?
Yes.
How much of a chance did you feel like it had to rain on you?
The further it came into the day, the more chance it was going to have to rain. We actually had the discussion at the store the night before of whether people wanted to put raincoats in or whatever into their special needs bags because you can buy them cheap. Throw in a rain jacket in case you needed it. And my opinion was I'm waterproof, and I've said that before. I've run in the rain. Rocky Raccoon, the 50 miler that I ran, was almost completely in the rain and the muck and the ugly. I've run a 50 miler in the rain and cold, and I just don't get that cold that easily. So for me, my chances of running in the cold weren't going to be as much as some. I did, and my rain jacket that was in my special needs bag was a heavy plastic bag with an arms and head cutout that I could put in the back of my in my run belt if I needed it. But I really didn't expect to use it in the race. I was right as a result. You went by special needs three times. So you had 3 opportunities to get into special needs, and my garbage bag raincoat stayed in there. So I knew there was a possibility, but I'd been there and done that on longer, harder races, in the way of a running race, not in an Ironman marathon. So I sort of had an idea of what the temperatures could get down to. So for me, 55, 60 degrees and rain, even if I was walking at a brisk walk, then I needed the warmth. So I was worried more about the warmth than the rain itself.
Okay. So as you actually get ready to start your first loop here, you're heading out, how do miles 1 through 5 go of the run for you?
I think this is, again, we talked about it earlier. I think this is where coaches' advice and having trust in coach helped a lot, because I knew at that point we were treating it as a trail race or as an ultra race. The way that I have to, because I'm a poorish runner. A couple of years ago I'd say poor, now I'm a poorish runner, but not a strong runner, is I can't run the hills any faster than I can power walk them. I can power walk at a 14-minute pace. If I'm running, I'm going to be putting in a lot more energy, and I'm not going to get very much further. So I actually came out of transition, and you're coming out of transition, walking a hill, and I walked the first hill. And the first flat, I ran it. And the first downhill, I ran. And the next hill, I walked. And I continued that type of thing the entire race. As I got more comfortable in the race, as I started finishing the first lap, the pace a little bit, because now I had a good rhythm of what I wanted. But when I started the race, it was hot out there. It was hot. It was humid. So that really started, you sort of knew how the daylight was going to go at that point.
Right. So at the aid stations, what were you taking in for nutrition?
Aid stations, I'll go back. I'm a banana guy.
Right.
Every time they had non-green bananas, I took bananas in. So I at least took one or two, chunks of bananas, either a third of banana or 2/3 of banana in at each aid station. As I needed it, I would take Gatorade, in as we went through, sort of about every second or third, and I would take a glass of water at each aid station until I sort of went, okay, had enough, and then I skipped a few aid stations. But again, they're a mile apart. They were close enough during this entire race that I never felt thirsty in between aid stations. Sometimes you go, oh God, if one would only come up. And this one, the hydration was pretty good. So I kept a pretty good idea of the hydration.
Okay. So how do miles 8 through 12, 13 go for you? What's the weather like now? Is it getting darker on you? How are you feeling?
So the first loop of this particular course, because again, they modified the 70.3 to a longer distance. The first loop was actually 11.4 miles, I think it was. They had a 4 mile out and back. So you took a little dog leg off in the first loop, went out, came back to come to the original course loop. So the first loop was 11 miles. When I finished 11 miles, I crossed sort of the tent city type areas that you have in all of them, which signified the start of loop 2. I felt good. I was in a rhythm. I knew how the race was going to go at that point. It was extremely hot. To me, it was at the hottest point at that point. And from loop 1 to loop 2, I put head to cool off. Didn't like it, but that's sort of where it was in the way of heat. So it was hot. It was humid. But we're training in Texas, so it's not unlike what we've done this summer, just more humid, and we've sort of lost our acclimation to it as we came into winter. Okay. So for folks like me, it was a little bit more, I think, more controllable than it was for some of our people who were coming from cold temperatures to this. So there was a lot of dehydration. So I felt good going into that point. At least I thought. As I went into loop 2, I couldn't reconcile in my head how in the world they were going to figure out how 3 11-mile loops was going to equal 26 miles.
Because that's 33 miles.
Right. And that's 50K, which doesn't make any sense. So I'm trying to figure this out, and I get partway through loop 2, and I'm going, I had to have missed a turn on loop 1 because maybe there was a loop 1 go this way, loop 2, 3 go this way. I went another 2 miles or so. So you asked about a mile 11. I went to probably 13 or 14 trying to figure out what crazy way they were going to send us on the second loop to figure out this 26-mile loop. And it took that long for my mind to figure out that we did an extra 4 miles on the first loop with an out and back. That little dog leg wasn't there the second 2 loops. Duh. But
you didn't think of that going.
Right. Physically, I was doing fine. Mentally, I couldn't do loop math.
You couldn't math.
Right. I could do the math. It just wasn't the right math as we went along. So once my mind went, okay, I got the math settled, then it was okay. The run course was really for me in about 3 different parts. You had the very first section after Tent City, which had long ups and down hills, a flat beach area, which was the beach or lagoon area aid station where they called it the beach. And then you had the really up and down neighborhood area. And then from the neighborhood, big long hills between there and the finish line. So I could start breaking down after the first loop what it looked like on the second loop after I figured out my math. Gotcha. And then it became managing of those sections.
Okay. So as you're approaching the miles 14 through 18, did it start raining on you at this time? At the end of the first loop, we got a little bit of sprinkles. The little bit of sprinkles were typically just, it was maybe 20 minutes to make it hot and humid, or more hot and humid. But then it'd go away.
And then it went away. It got hot again and hot and ugly. It didn't start raining until dark, but dark was 5:30.
Right.
So I was probably halfway through before it got dark. But once it got dark, the lightning started, and you could tell that it was coming in. So by the mid part of my second loop, it started sprinkling, raining a little bit. But it got a little bit harder. In the third loop, I was just hoping the third loop that they would let the race go on. because there were big, God sending the lightning straight down in the skies and big old bolts of lightning coming down. And I thought, just let me get off the course. We're almost done. We have 6 or 7 miles to go. Just let me get this done. For me, until mile 23, it was like that. Sprinkling rain, no bother. I had a cap on. So for me, it was perfect. It was nice and cooling. For other people, I know they started getting cold, sort of depending on your body temperature. Once the sun went down, everything cooled off and made it a lot nicer, depending on who you were. For me, there was a point on the course at mile 23, 24 that I took one step with my left foot as the heavy rain started, and it came out from underneath my body in front of it. And when it went in front of my body, it's as if somebody poured a bucket of water on my foot. The rain started coming down so hard. And it soaked my foot for the first time the whole day during that singular step. I'm serious. And as my other foot came out from underneath my body, it soaked that foot. You could not have poured water on my feet and made them any more wet at the time.
And what point was that at?
That was somewhere between 23, 24.
So you had another 3-ish miles left.
Yeah, I had another half hour. For me on the third loop would have been 19 on. The third loop, I started skipping every other aid station because all of a sudden it had gotten cooler. I didn't need the aid. I was used to trail running, so the aid stations weren't needed as often. So I had started skipping them already. By the time the rain started coming down, I had 3 miles to go. Hydration's good, nutrition's good. Then it's just get through it. But from that point on, again, I only have 30 minutes or so to go. Other people had several hours. The rain is pouring and it is rushing down the street. The timing mat wires, it's coming completely over. I mean, you're in the water on every step. It's not stepping over puddles. The streets are awash.
Right.
So,
and I know that you had a base cap on and you saw Matt Miller out there. And they're always known for giving energy to people on the race course. How were they handling this event?
I came through there before it happened. So I was just past, or a little ways past their thing. But the group, they're fantastic. They were out there, they were handing out things, they were helping people. I've heard from other athletes, once the rain started doing it became a triage to things. But they were handing out salt. They had salt for everybody and a good humor for everybody. I got rocket fuel from them as I went by. I'll run for them this next year. I'm a new team member for 19. So they're exactly what the course needed. And they, the music and everything else is fantastic as you go by them. They of course probably had the best 10 on the course all day. So, but they're used to that. That's what they are.
Right. So as you approach the last 2 miles of the race here, I saw the finish line video of you finishing. And just before we get to that point, how are you holding up emotionally and mentally with this downpour of rain for 20, 30 minutes at the last little bit of an Ironman?
For me personally, I had up until that point done everything right. It had been everything from my very early morning to then had all been right. I had, my nutrition was on point. My times were on point. I had set up my run at mile 20 in Arizona. I started hunching over like an old man. I had my hands on my hip flexors in Arizona trying to hold myself up. When I went by the base tent, I was looking down at the ground a year before. So this year, I'm upright and I'm running. Well, I'm at the hell yeah point at this point because I only have 3 miles, which is further than I got the last time in good shape. I only have 3 miles. So at that point, it's let's get to the finish line. So, as much as it was raining and as much as it was a deluge coming down of rain, and it was as if somebody was pouring buckets of water on you, I really didn't care because I had run the race the way I was supposed to run it.
And not only that, but you also knew that you had a PR in the bag at this point.
Well, yeah, from a total race point of view, yes, absolutely. Yeah, I had almost an hour on a much tougher course.
Right.
So I didn't know what my swim was, but I knew it was close. I knew my bike. Ben had told me while I was on the run, you beat your bike. So that was cool. Even controlled, it was better. And I knew on the run, I was doing well on the run. I didn't know how well on the run, but I was doing well on the run. What I found out later is I was only 20 minutes over my standalone marathon finish time.
Wow.
So that's sort of the way the day was going. So at this point in the race, I'm going, this is the way it's supposed to be. I didn't realize that it was supposed to be like this. I'm still on a walk-run interval, walking the hills and running the flats and downhills for now the third lap of the Ironman marathon, which we're used to running until you can't run and then surviving the rest. So for me, all of my trail running that I had started back in February now paid dividends. My July Pikes Peak, which was a hard race for me, all of the mental that I went through with that, all of those times of going through those things now paid dividends in this race, so that there wasn't the mental toll or the physical toll that there had been on other races. Yes, I had a blister. Yes, I lost 2 toenails. Yes, these things happen, but there wasn't that at this point. It was how close is 3 miles.
Right. Now, whenever you actually think about the last 800 yards of the finish line,
yeah,
I saw the finish line video, and for those that haven't seen this video or even any video of the Florida finish line this year, there are plenty of pictures and videos where it's nice and dry in the sunlight, but whenever it got dark, it got wet, and there was standing water on the red carpet this year. And I'm pretty sure that for many athletes, just like yourself, it was above their shoes standing water.
Yeah.
So whenever you actually got to where you can actually see the bright lights of the finish line, did you realize that there was that much standing water?
Oh, no, not at all.
So when did you realize that there was standing water on the carpet?
Well, you said twice there was standing water on the carpet, and you're right. There was standing water underneath the carpet too.
Oh.
So the carpet was submerged in the water, and it was above the ground. So if you think of a half-submerged air mattress on the water, that's what you're running over. So after 140.5 miles, you're now running on a mattress in between the water. So I'll step back a little bit. You said 800 yards beforehand. Well, 800 yards beforehand in Arizona, I took almost a minute, seemed like longer, to stretch my back out far enough to be able to stand upright to go down the carpet. For this one, I'm standing straight up. So I'm feeling great. I actually walked probably 200 yards of the flat to sort of compose to go run down the red carpet. Well, so as I turned to run, enjoy the carpet, because I didn't want to sprint through it, but enjoy the carpet, all of a sudden you get on the carpet and it's squishy, squishy, splash, 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 bloosh, blop, 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 as you're trying to run. You're, of course, saying hi and such as that. You're trying to find coach. You're trying to find different faces, sort of. But the main thing I was thinking is, oh, God, don't trip. You'll drown. Because the carpet had gone over the drain, so it was in a low spot, and then you had the water on top of it. So in pictures, you can see my foot underneath the water, splashing the water back up. Yeah, it was well over, but all I could think is, don't fall. Don't just stay up. And that was the biggest part coming down this red carpet versus the year before was. The year before, I thought I was standing straight up and I was hunched over like an old man running. This year, I was standing straight up saying, oh, God, don't trip. Last year, it was don't fall on your face. This year, it was don't trip on the water. But there's actually finish line picture where it looks like my left eye is bulged out because the water was so big in front of the camera that the drop of water looks like it's enlarged my left eye. But there's not a finish line picture that part of me isn't worried because of the big drops of rain that were coming down. Mike Riley was actually on live talking about the finish as I was coming across, and you have finish line video of him on live doing the finish line video because it was raining so hard at that point. But that was the finish. Yes, it was. I've seen people say, I wish I would have finished in the the rain like it was because that was so cool. And it was what it should have been.
Right. So in a sense, it's like that's what Florida should have been this year, because with Michael, with the moving and everything of the race venues, is like, this just makes sense.
Right. No, absolutely. And will it happen again? Nope. That's it.
Yep.
One and done.
Yep, that's it. So after you finish, what'd you do next?
I actually felt really, really, really good after the finish. They had, because of the cold and such as that, they had people putting blankets on everybody as they came and really tending to every athlete that came across. And I didn't want the blanket or anything else. I just wanted to sort of go and get done. I really felt good. From there, I went to the athlete's tent, which was a long ways across. That was probably the worst part, is from the finish line to the athlete's tent, not medical, but the athlete's tent to get food, was about 500 yards across areas and such as that. So you had to walk a long ways. I felt pretty good. For other athletes, that was a long haul to get over there. I went over there to get my morning clothes, which I had already packed, my change of clothes, my warm clothes for the night, including another plastic bag for a coat. And so I wanted my morning bag, wanted to get my food. When I got my food, my crew was there waiting on me. I was the next to last coming across the line. So they were already there getting food. So I had a nice spot to sit down, food and everything else there. So from there, I was relaxing and telling good stories and watching the rain come down. There was water standing in that tent and everywhere else.
Wow. So after all of this, you kind of get an idea of how you feel and how you did at some point. When did you actually realize that you PR'd not only the overall course, but the bike and the run as well?
Probably during that time. And that was just, as an athlete, you're going, okay, what did I do? Because you're so interested in getting those numbers. So that all the timing was there. So, coach was able to go through that. I really didn't realize that my run time was as good as it was. I knew that my run felt as good as it was, but I didn't know what it turned out to be. I didn't know what my overall time was for it because I couldn't do the math in my head. But knowing that, I knew that I wanted to be 13 something. If it was 13:59, I'd have been happy. If it had been 13:00, I'd have been overjoyed. If it had been 12, somebody else would have run my race. But I knew somewhere in the 13 I would get in there. And for it to come under just 13:30, so it's on the shallow side of 13, extremely happy on it. That's athletically where I thought I could be. And so, the course on the day that it gave me, not everybody else, but it gave me, what it gave me in the way of preparation, what it gave me in the way of the running of the course, what it gave me in the way of the weather. For me, I did as well as I could do on that course. The training, the preparation, all those things to build up on it gave me a really nice day.
Right. So looking back on it, how well prepared for this race do you feel like you were?
I don't know any other way that I could have been better prepared. Like I say, having a coach that truly knows you, having a coach, even making, if I had not shared things with Ben the night before, because I really, I had trepidations about doing that, and him making changes, my run would have been a lot different. So I think strategically more than anything, all the preparations were there, but it took strategy to get that part of it, for me, done. For other people, they could have run through those things. For other people, they could have done it differently. I'm not that strong to be able to do that. I needed to be able to plan it out. So I think in the way of preparation, I wouldn't have done anything any different. Yeah, could you have spent more days? Yes. But one of the reasons you'd ask how often you miss practices or miss workout sessions, and I said I make almost every one of them, it's because I don't want to get to race day and regret that if I had done an extra swim, or if I had done an extra bike, or if I had done an extra run, I'd have been better prepared. I have a coach that's well experienced. I have a coach that knows what he's doing, and a coach we trust. I do those things on a daily basis, so I should walk into those things prepared.
Right. So we covered a lot about your race. Do you have anything else you want to add?
No, I think the only addition is coming from one year to the other from Arizona here. One of the things that I did was go back and review my Arizona race notes from the year before. And I discussed in my race report the things that I was weak in. And one of the things I said was kill the weakness, and it really wasn't, that man up, kill the weakness. It was look very seriously at where I was weaker. I knew that I had some things to correct on my swim because it's such a technical sport. And I knew that I had to be a better runner. Those are things that I significantly paid attention to this year, that not only to make my run faster, and I did, not only to make my my posterior chain stronger, which I did, but to really pay attention to form and efficiency on that, to make what I was doing easier. So really going back from one race report to the next, I try to do that from one year to the other or from one race to the other to give myself an idea of where I should mentally be paying attention. So I think those race reports for me are probably one of the most important things that I do for me and the coach.
Wow. So what's next for you?
This year I'm going to try to, again, kill the weakness. I'm weakest in running. I'm going to try to do a lot more ultras. I have my first big races in April, or my first race that I'm preparing for is, 100K. I know there's a little bit of a difference there. But to run the Brazos Bend 100K in April and start a series of races, of trail races during this year to improve on my run, with a goal of running a 100-miler at the end of the year, to get better at that running aspect of the sport. Not only for that, I truly do enjoy the trail running. I really do enjoy the distance running as opposed to the shorter distances. So it gives me a little bit difference next year, rather than trying for an Ironman, but trying for a super long distance race, which that's my most challenging area.
Okay. So what races are on your bucket list?
100-miler.
Which one?
Brazos Bend 100. That's December 1st week of 2019.
Wow.
That's it. I did a super hard Pikes Peak 50K up in the mountains this summer, and it was as challenging as anything I've ever done. This one's flat and in Texas, but I really wanted to see whether I could handle some of the elevation and altitude, and I'm just not a strong enough athlete, so I booked it back down to where I thought I could compete. So, no, to me, it's a journey. We keep on going through this. I'll find something this next year. I don't have a huge race list this year. I'll run the ultras to just to get the mileage in, to be able to get the body ready for a 100-miler. And I'll add in a 70.3 here or whatever it happens to be.
Okay. So I only have one more question for you, Jeff, and that's, what's your definition of a perfect race?
I think it's one for me that goes as planned. The preparation is there. It's one that I've enjoyed the day. It's one that I put the plan to use. It's not to PR. PRs are cool. We knew everybody would get a PR at Haines City because it was a one and done. So it's not to PR. It's really to enjoy the day and sort of enjoy the fruits of what you've been doing during the journey. It's the formative assessment as we go along. So for me, it's, if I'm improving, whatever that measure may be, it's a perfect race. If I've done what I planned on doing, it's a perfect race. Otherwise, I don't quite have that definition of a perfect race. Maybe I'll run it one day.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, Jeff, thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I've enjoyed hearing about your race and discussing it in detail. It's been great.
Yeah. Thanks. I appreciate it. You have a great day. All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in today. I hope you were able to learn something from today's episode. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to leave a review on iTunes or share it with a friend. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. If you'd like to see pictures from this athlete's race, learn more about who I am, what I'm doing, or be on the show yourself to share your story, check out my website at CoachTerryWilson.com. Until next time, continue the pursuit.